everyone, welcome back again to another episode of Mohamed Talks with entrepreneurs, millionaires, billionaires, public speakers, motivational speakers, and more. Today, we have Mr. Frederick Penney, and we're going to be talking about how you can go from selling tomatoes to earning the money to buy big planes. Hello, Mr. Frederick Penney. How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm excited. I've been on shows all over the country of the United States, and I've been interviewed by the who's who, and I'm telling you, this is the first person under 18 that's interviewed me, and I'm excited to have you be my first interviewer.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure, and I believe you're one of the first billionaires or millionaires on this show. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, we don't say how much we make. You never say that, right?
Oh, I know. The secret to success. See,
yeah, secret of
success. Dropping gems already. So, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about how you can start from making small to making big. First of all, what do you think making small and making big is?
Sure. I think a lot of it has to do with kind of how you grew up. And unfortunately or fortunately, everyone's different in the country or in the United States or in the world, right? Some people come from a real poverty situation. Other people come from wealth, right? But believe it or not, my opinion has always been, it doesn't matter what you start out with. Because I know very wealthy people that came through with money that lost it all, right? In other words, people that, came from wealthy families, had money, and they just messed it all up. And then yet you have people that started with nothing and became independently wealthy, successful in all aspects of life, not necessarily business, but in their personal life. And so to me, it's always been taught to me, it doesn't matter where you come from. In fact, when I grew up in the United States, in California. Everyone thinks California is the beach. Believe it or not, there's parts of California that are farmland. And I grew up in an area that was more farmland. And we grew up with very little money. We had 4 children. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was a police officer and a gentleman farmer, like we farm. So you can't, in the United States, it's very difficult on a police officer's salary to raise 4 boys and the wife stay home and live in California, right? So we struggled growing up. It was a real struggle to make ends meet. So we buckled down and we worked hard, and we didn't know we were poor, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying poor where we didn't have food on the table, but by the end of the month, we were struggling to pay for groceries, right? And that's kind of how we grew up. But we didn't know any better, and we didn't care. We were happy, right? And I always tell people now, they say, now that you've become successful, and by the way, success to me is a journey. It's not a destination. So they say, oh, you become successful. I go, well, wait a minute. Define success. To me, it's a constant journey, and it never ends. But to become where I am, to where I was when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, where I had nothing. The joy is no different now than it was then, other than family, right, and children. But Mohammed, I've learned that, your happiness is where you are. And if you're always saying, I'm going to be more happy when I get to this level, you're never going to get there. So my happiness and joy is no different today, other than those nuances for the family, than it was when I was broke with nothing. So that's kind of how it started. And that's how I was taught. We worked really hard. We worked non-stop. So when I was 14, I'd say 13 or 14, again, we had a small gentleman's farm. My grandparents lived next to us. We're out on a dirt road. In fact, I've written a book called Penman Boy's Book about it. And my book, a shout out on Goose on Amazon is, by the way, #1 bestseller in hardback, paperback, and 8 categories. And Goose 2 is coming out, and then Goose 3. And Goose started by saying, look, you're like the golden goose. My publishers kept calling me, you're the golden goose. So we called it the golden goose, then it went to Goose. But it talks about how at the very beginning, I just learned to work hard. And my parents taught me that, you're 13, and this is way back in the 70s and the late 60s. You go get a job. And I worked at the fruit farms picking peaches, picking zucchini squash in the garden, and I picked stuff when I was 13, 14 years old. And that's about when I started working for a living. And I learned to work hard. So there you go. That's how it all started.
That's incredible. You know what? A few life lessons you get from that is that success doesn't change a person, it only magnifies their true identity, right? So if you're greedy with no money, you're going to be greedy with money. If you're happy with more money, you're going to be happy with money. So another question pops up to mind when you say, you know what, you at 13, you went to find a job, right? Your parents told you to, right? And that puts responsibility on your shoulders. And there's a quote that says, if you don't want your children to fly away, you got to put a little bit of weight, which is responsibility, on their shoulders. Mm-hmm. So how did it feel the first time you worked? Because for me, I don't really work. I work for myself. But working for another person, like to say as a job, how did that feel the first time?
Yeah, it was no different because my dad worked us to death. I mean, when I was a young kid, we worked on the farm. So a little interesting tidbit, my mom was very religious and my dad was not. And so my mom took us to church every Sunday. And this is to tell you exactly how we learned to work. And as a little kid, my dad says, we don't have to go to church. And so I decided one Sunday that I'm not going to go to church. I don't need to go to church. And my father said, it's up to you. You can make the decision. And I'd never forget my older brother like going, oh, dude, you better go to church. And I'm like, nah, I don't remember how old I was. I was maybe 8, 9. And sure enough, they marched off to church in the morning. My dad put his little cowboy hat on and, his little cowboy, United States cowboy hat on and said, let's go. And he worked me from about 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. straight on the farm. And so I never missed church after that because with Sundays we didn't have to work, right? So my dad taught me some really tough lessons in, how to work hard, but, you go to church no matter, and I always say, no matter what your religion is, just you need to believe in a deity and you need to have some sort of faith in something. And that's another whole discussion I talk about. But he taught me to, you fear God and you go to church. And that's what, without teaching me, he made me learn that by saying, I don't want to work for 14 hours or whatever, 12 hours on Sunday straight. So stuff like that I was taught early on. Then as time progressed, Mohamed, my grandmother, who was a quintessential Californian, grew up in Pasadena near Beverly Hills. If those of you who are from other countries, not too far from Beverly Hills, she ran a supermarket, her own supermarket. She started when she was, mid-30s, 40s. And this was in the 1940s. And she was one of the first women that had a supermarket in Los Angeles. And she became successful. And there were some issues where they had to quit. But they followed me. My grandparents followed me around. And this was her attitude the whole time. And I always use this example. When I was in my teens, probably 16, 15, I played basketball at high school. And as I came home, we lost the game. And my grandma was there and said, hey, how did you do? And I said, we lost. She said, you lost? Why did you lose? I said, because they were better than us. She goes, well, why are they better than you? I said, they shot better baskets and they were bigger and faster. Well, why did they shoot more baskets and bigger and faster than you? She called me Freddie. And then the whole time, every time I made an excuse, Mohamed, she would just come right back. Well, why? Well, why are they better than you? She would not take any excuses. In our family, there are no excuses, right? And I really look back and I appreciated that. And she turned to me and said, Freddie, she called me Freddie, you can do anything you want in this world. If you want to be the president of the United States, just go do it. The only one stopping you is you, Freddie, just you. You're stopping yourself. And that's the attitude I learned early on, that it doesn't matter. I just keep going. And there's no excuse. I just don't use excuses. I always tell people that, well, tell me about a failure. Fred, everybody fails. I said, I've never failed. Mohamed, did you know, Mohamed, I've never failed in my whole life? Never, ever failed. And people say, well, you're a liar. No, it's an experience. It's not a failure. So I've been taught early on that there are no failures. There's only experiences in life. So every time I, quote, failed according to society, I said I didn't fail. I just gained more experience. So that's been my attitude from the beginning. And that's how I've just built things. And I can go into detail, which we don't have time for, on how I built my businesses and multiple businesses, diversified, the law firm, who, by the way, I became a lawyer at a young age, and I started my law practice 31 years ago. And everyone's like, you're a brand new lawyer. Why you got to go work for someone first? I said, no, I can do it myself. But I just had the tenacity, and I know that if I fall, I'm just going to get right back up, right? So that's kind of how my attitude was. And in today's society, I feel bad for a lot of youth. They're taught to make excuses. Okay, it's the ref's fault. Oh, no, this person's being bad to me or not treating me right. So what? So what? It's part of life. And that's what I was taught. And that's why I continue to accelerate and grow. And that's how I started as a young age and as a teenager. And my attitude was an attitude of gratitude. And then it was, I never fail. And the only one stopping me is me. And then I believe in also, I don't believe in getting rich quick. It's taken me years. It takes time to get to obtain wealth in businesses. And that's the way I've always looked at it.
So yeah, on that last point you made is that everyone tries to make excuses. Okay. The main reason for excuse, the main reason for searching for outside accomplishments and outside availability, because the main reason someone would give an excuse is because they think and they manifest that they cannot do this, or that they fail, as you said, quote unquote. But for us, it's just that, in my idea, if you ever do make an excuse, right? Has anyone ever made an excuse because of you? Like, if you think about it, the only excuse you have in this life is that you didn't breathe another breath of fresh air. All right? Is that you didn't think better. Okay? And those aren't even excuses. Those are analytics. The only reason people make excuses is because they think they cannot do it or they could not have done better. So, when it comes to success stories, every single person says that at a young age, they started learning. How young should you be to start learning? I mean, you were 13 when you started learning about jobs, but when you were 8, you learned harder lessons. So at what age should you start learning?
Yeah, I think the entrepreneurial spirit, people ask me this all the time. Do you think it's innate and born in you, the entrepreneurial spirit or your business sense, or is it something you've learned? And the answer is both. I do truly believe there's some people that have a little more natural ability to do it, but that doesn't mean that there's not super successful people that don't have that natural ability. They a lot of times have to work harder at it, and they become more successful because they have to work harder. But the way I've always seen it as, I started from an early age. I truly believe I started from an early age. I always wanted to succeed. I hated losing. I really have a real issue, a mental issue of losing. I hate to lose. And everyone's like, well, why don't you retire? Because I love the game of business and I like to win, right? And you have to be honest too. You don't want, you're not, dishonest about how you do things, but I love the game of businesses and building businesses, and my law practice, just expanding it and building it. And, I started out with a small law practice in California, and now I have partners in 46 states in the United States. We're all over the United States. And that's that, the jet flies all the time. That thing follows me everywhere I go because I'm so busy hitting all these states. But it all comes down to you. There is no specific age. So at your age, you could start it. You should be starting now to some degree. I don't mean you have to go sell lemonade on the corner, but you need to have that attitude, right? That attitude here starts right now, starts when if you've got parents that help you, you're going to have that attitude when you're 5 and 6 and 7. And it helped me when I was, 11, 12, 13, 14 is you go out and work. You work for a living, and I just outworked everybody, right? But also I've learned though, I always believe that everyone has, I have these issues in life. When a door closes, there's another one that's open somewhere. Here's a quick story. As I struggled through law school, I was never the brightest guy. I was never the brightest law student. I'm going to say average. I was always in the middle of my class. I wasn't dumb, but I wasn't the smartest. And I always say the A students work for the C students later. So I was an average lawyer. And I so badly wanted to get this job in a law practice, a law firm. And I'm going to say in the San Francisco, you know where San Francisco is in law. And it's everyone's heard of San Francisco and Los Angeles, right? It was a big mega firm. And they brought four of us in. I think it was in four. My wife says three. It was either three or four of us. And they tested us all out. So we worked for the summer. And they sat us down at the end and said, well, we're going to hire everyone except for Fred Penney. Everyone got hired. I did not, because they didn't think they didn't agree that I was good enough for the firm, whatever. So a normal person would be upset and depressed about that, right? I was the only one that was not hired, and I'm going to call fired, right? And if I wouldn't have done that, Mohamed, if that would have happened, I would have worked for that law firm for a long time. But what I did is I said, well, doggone it, I'm going to go on my own and start my own practice. So I went to another firm briefly, and then just to get a little more experience, and I started my law practice. But without being fired or laid off or not hired by that firm that I really wanted to work for, I would have never started my practice and built it to the mega practice that it is now, right? With the partnerships nationwide. So I say when one door closes, one opens. And so that's the way I see it. Again, no failures, just experiences.
So yeah, basically rejection, right? This is the difference in people who are successful and people who are quote unquote not successful. Okay, because for me, I have two definitions of success. Number one, it's a journey, as you said in the beginning. Number two is to set a design for your life and then to go do it. Most people stereotype success, and they make it so stereotypical that if you don't have a fancy car, if you don't have a yacht, if you don't have money in the bag, you're not successful. But no, the only reason people would want to manifest money or say wealth is for the next generation to be able to live in a better way, right? Their next generation. They're just trying to build generational wealth. And also, money, it's experience, and that experience is the best thing. So yeah, in my idea, it was a pleasure to have you here today. And it's just that one last question is, if I were to buy that plane that's right behind you, right?
Hold on, this one right here. Hold on. This one.
Yeah, how much would I have to, invest?
Well, let me tell you right now. I told people from day one that I'm going to have my own jet, my own pilot someday, and most of them laughed at me, Mohamed. Most of them laughed.
Same thing here.
What does that do for me? Just watch me. I'm going to do it. And I've always been that way. And I love it when people are like negative about it. You can't do it. You can't do it. Good. Keep telling me and I'll show you I'm going to do it. So that's the way I've always been. And in general in life, I'm going to leave with this. It is fun to build businesses. It's fun to see them grow or fall or struggle or get bigger. But at the end of the day, I always say you have to have perspective in life, right? The most important thing is family, friends, God, whatever your God is. That's the way I see it. And at the end of the day, I saw something on Instagram. By the way, I'm Frederick Penney 1. You guys want to follow my Instagram? I saw on Instagram someone said, and it showed a picture. It said the wealthy and the poor, and it showed an old, like in Peru, a poor mud home and this mansion like out of Beverly Hills, and it said before. This says before. It says wealthy and poor, and afterwards, and it showed two graves with the holes dug, with ready to put their coffins in, and they were the exact same size, same grave. So the point is perspective, right? Make sure you have balance in life. It's all about your family, friends, God. But there's nothing wrong with working really hard, trying to succeed financially also, because I don't think anyone is going to fault you for that, but keep it in perspective. You do that, I think life's going to be good. Also, be patient. Be patient. I know you can get rich quick. It's okay to take 10, 20, 30 years to become financially successful. That's okay. In today's society, everyone thinks they got to get rich within a year or so, but it takes time, and that's okay to take time. So I leave that with you, Mohamed. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I appreciate you. Love to hear about your success. I heard about it from Renee, and I'm excited for you to build your businesses worldwide and fly to the States someday and come meet me.
I mean, yeah, I'm thinking of doing that. But thank you so much. Shukran. That's thank you in my native language, Arabic. And yeah, it was a pleasure having you here. Everyone check the links in the description to go find his social media, his account. Everything is in the description. Be sure to give him a follow if you enjoyed his content. And who wouldn't? And thank you so much for being here. And it was a pleasure to have you. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.